Hi, my name is Jose Manuel. This is Block 3 and I have chosen to analyze my coaching process. In order to give some context about the images that are going to appear in the screen, they are from one of my one-on-one coaching sessions or personal training. The client in this occasion was continuing his deadlift, squat, and lunges learning process through the use of barbells and kettlebells, as can be appreciated. Therefore, the images, for example, show myself talking to the client during his rest periods, also cueing the client during the execution of the tasks, and sometimes demonstrating the tasks to the client. So, having said that, first I am going to explain what is coaching in sports and what is process, to finally explore what both words coupled together means. In addition, it is important to know some of the aspects that make up the multifaceted coaching process to show which ones are going to be under analysis. The first one is sports coaching, which is the improvement of an individual's or team's sporting ability, both as a general capacity and as a specific performance, as told by Lyle 2006. Therefore, in sports, this concept concerns about getting better the performance of one or more athletes. On the other hand, process is a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. Thus, process in sports is about a systematical approach to accomplish a particular objective between the coach and the athlete. Then, if we add coaching to the word process or vice versa, there are different definitions that can be found in the literature to clarify what is the coaching process. Here are two examples. The first one by Lyle 2006 tells that coaching process is the most appropriate one to use when describing the purposeful engagement of the athlete and the coach for the purpose of improving performance. However, this first concept leaves out the constraints or aspects that make up the real coaching process. The second definition by Cross and Lyle 2006 tells that it is a purposeful improvement of competition sports performance achieved through a planned program of preparation and competition. In normal circumstances, a coach manages this process within a time and context-bound agreement or contract, although there will be a considerable variety in the implementation of the process. This one clearly bounds both the concept of sports coaching, i.e., the aim to improve someone's performance, and the concept of process through the planned program preparation, which is also supported by other literature, for example by Lyle 2006. It is important to recognize that this second definition shows that time and context can limit the whole coaching process. The time and context can represent limitations or pressures that can be or not out of the coach's control, and they subject the coaching process, as demonstrated by Caution, Armour, and Jones 2006. Some examples of these constraints are the coach's philosophy, the equipment or facility availability, the movement correction in sessions, and there are more to mention. In my context, I found one aspect of my coaching process that can be improved, which is the movement correction in session, that can be constrained by the facility in which I work and session designing. In the videos can be appreciated how I always cue and correct the client from the sagittal plane, so I am missing a lot of information of the client's movement in the frontal plane. This means I am not watching the movement from the front and back side of the client. Those missed angles can give me the opportunity and information to lead the client to perform better and get us closer to the objectives. Nevertheless, the space in the weightlifting platform does not let me to be there watching the client's technique from behind or from the front side. This can be easily improved if I change the client's position to work and my position to observe. In fact, the gym facility gives me that opportunity, so for next workouts I have to design the session in that positional way. Consequently, I will not miss what's happening in the frontal plane, or for instance, movement aberrations in foot placement to watch if there is pronation, or look for knee position and search for its valgus, or maybe watch if one side is working more than the other because of a hip shift. It can also be an exaggerated shoulder elevation or some asymmetries. And finally, I can find neck lateral flexion, etc. From the sagittal plane, some of these technical faults can be observed. However, they can be easier detected from the frontal plane than from the sagittal one. Nevertheless, it is important to also take into account the transverse plane. In this case, a movement such as the deadlift requires the stability and control to avoid, for example, trunk rotations. Ideally, to appreciate rotations of the client's body or rotations of the barbell, a view from above would be useful. However, this is far from reality. Actually, this type of movement aberration can be seen from a mix between side to front views when coaching a client, and it is also important to be taking into account for the movement correction of my coaching process. In summary, as said by PAF 2018, axes and planes are the landmarks to analyze movement. However, when we look at movement, it's easy to fall into the trap of referring to the action in question solely by the general plane that it is governed by. For instance, movement patterns like hinging, or in this case the deadlift, is generally thought of as a movement taking place in the sagittal plane. In reality, however, this only describes the global direction of movement. The movement itself is actually triplanar, i.e., meaning it is happening in the 3 dimensions. Considering the deadlift, for example, the hip flexes and extends in the sagittal plane, adducts and abducts in the frontal plane, and externally rotates in the transverse plane. Just to show that movement is actually in 3 dimensions, i.e. 3D, let's appreciate this picture. That shot from above shows, for instance, that the athlete is moving in 3D, because, for example, the runner is flexing the right hip in the sagittal plane, abducting the left foot in the frontal plane, and externally rotating the same foot but in the transverse plane. Therefore, I have to work in my position when observing clients to avoid falling into the trap of referring to the general plane that is the exercise governed by. Getting better at this can improve my movement correction skills, which is one aspect that comprises the coaching process. Thus, this means I will also enhance my whole coaching process to be a better strength and conditioning coach. Thank you for your attention. These were the references used in this blog.